The ship carrying the human envoy moved slowly across the skies of Aravan. Its silver body reflected the light of two suns, and the people of the alien world watched from the ground with calm but curious eyes. They had seen many things across their long history, but this was the first time humans were invited to stand on their soil. For centuries Aravan had stood apart from the galaxy, keeping its culture pure and its traditions unbroken. Now, with new changes stirring among the stars, they had opened their gates. Among the envoy was a young man named Ryan. He was not the leader, not a soldier, not even a man of high rank. He was chosen for his quiet mind, his patient ways, and his skill in learning new tongues. He had trained for months to understand the language of Aravan, but no book could prepare him for the living heart of a world. His eyes were wide with wonder as the ship landed on the green plains outside the capital city. Towers of smooth white stone rose high, shaped not by machines but by careful hands over many ages. The air was fresh and heavy with the scent of strange blossoms. When the doors opened, the humans stepped onto the grass. The ground was soft, almost glowing in the light. Waiting for them was a group of Aravan guards in silver armor, their faces calm and unreadable. Behind them stood the council, robed figures who watched with sharp eyes. At the center of this gathering was the princess. Her name was Solara. She was tall, her bearing strong, yet her presence was not cold. She carried herself with the grace of her people, but there was warmth in her gaze, as if she held both the dignity of her crown and the kindness of her heart. Her hair shimmered like dark silk under the twin suns, and her eyes held a quiet fire that seemed to see deeper than surface words. Ryan felt his steps falter when he first looked at her. He had read about alien rulers, about their customs, about how they guarded their ways. But nothing in his lessons had spoken of her. It was as if the world itself paused for him in that moment. The leader of the human envoy bowed low, offering words of respect. Solara answered in a voice clear and calm, her words flowing like music. Ryan understood them, though his mind felt slow, as if caught between duty and awe. The ceremony of greeting began. The council members spoke, the humans replied, and both sides promised peace and learning. Ryan stood at the edge, silent, watching, but his thoughts kept drifting back to Solara. She seemed to notice him once or twice. Her eyes brushed across the group, and when they passed over him, he felt as though a flame touched his chest. He lowered his gaze quickly, afraid of disrespect, yet something in him stirred. After the formal words ended, the visitors were guided through the gardens that circled the capital. The air was filled with colors unknown to human eyes. Trees with silver leaves bent gently as if bowing to unseen winds. Streams ran clear as glass, and soft glowing insects floated above the flowers. Solara herself came to lead the walk. Her council wished to show honor, and so she walked at the front with measured steps. Ryan followed, listening to her voice as she explained the meaning of the gardens. Each flower, she said, was tied to history. The red blossoms grew from the soil of old battlefields, now symbols of peace. The tall blue trees were planted to mark unity between clans. Even the smallest weeds were left untouched, for they reminded her people of humility. Her words were not just lessons, but stories. Ryan found himself listening more closely than to any lecture he had ever known. He tried to hide his fascination, but she saw it. A faint smile touched her lips as she noticed the human whose eyes never wandered from her stories. At one point, the envoy paused before a fountain shaped like a spiral. The leader of the humans asked questions about trade and knowledge. Solara answered with patience. Ryan stood behind them, silent, yet his heart beat fast. He wanted to speak, to ask, to show he understood. But he feared saying the wrong word, feared showing too much interest. So he stayed still, and his silence became its own form of respect. Later, when the tour ended and the council departed, Ryan lingered near the fountain. The others moved ahead, but Solara remained a moment longer. She looked back and saw him standing there, quiet, almost lost in thought. Instead of turning away, she walked toward him. "You listen," she said softly, her voice carrying the tone of curiosity rather than command. Ryan looked up quickly, surprised that she spoke to him directly. "I try," he answered in her tongue, his accent heavy but his effort true. Her eyes held his for a moment, and then she gave a small nod. "Many come to speak. Few come to listen. That is worth more than words." Before he could reply, the call of her attendants reached them. She turned gracefully and walked away, her steps light as the breeze. Ryan stood frozen, his heart racing. He had not expected her to notice him, not in this way. A simple exchange, yet it left him unsettled. That night, as the human envoy settled into their quarters within the city, Ryan lay awake. He thought of the towers of stone, of the gardens filled with stories, but most of all he thought of her. The way she moved, the way she spoke, the way her eyes seemed to see not just the surface of things but the spirit behind them. He felt foolish, for he was only one man among many, and she was a princess of a great world. Yet his heart whispered truths that reason could not silence. He did not know then how that single meeting, that single moment of attention, would shape the path of both their worlds. The days on Aravan passed with quiet ceremony and learning. The human envoy spent their time walking through the city, meeting the council, and studying the customs of the people. Ryan was often given the role of listener. His skill with words was useful, but his gift was not in speaking loudly. It was in listening carefully. That quiet nature brought him closer to truths that others missed. Solara, the princess, appeared often during these days. She did not attend every meeting, but when she came, her presence filled the space. Her calm voice held authority, yet there was warmth that softened her words. Most humans were careful in her presence, speaking only when spoken to. Ryan, as before, remained silent, but his eyes always followed her. One morning, the council arranged a visit to the high gardens. These gardens were built above the city, carved into the cliffs that rose behind the towers. The climb was long, but the path wound through terraces of green, each layer richer than the one before. The humans walked with effort, while the Aravan people moved as if born to the heights. At the top, the view stretched wide across the land. Rivers glimmered like silver threads, forests spread in waves of green, and far in the distance the twin suns burned low over the horizon. The envoy paused, awed by the sight. Solara stood near the edge, her hand resting lightly on a carved stone rail. "This world is our breath," she said. "It holds the stories of those who came before us. Every tree, every stone, is a memory. When you walk here, you do not walk alone. You walk with all who built the path." The others nodded politely, but Ryan felt her words settle deep within him. He wished to ask about those memories, about how they carried them, but his tongue held still. To speak too much in such a moment might break the quiet bond that was forming without words. Later, as the group walked deeper into the high gardens, Solara slowed her steps. Her attendants moved ahead with the council and the human leaders, leaving her a short distance behind. Ryan, walking near the rear, found himself beside her. For a moment, silence hung between them, heavy yet gentle. "You hear more than you say," Solara spoke softly, without turning her head. Ryan glanced at her in surprise. "I listen," he answered, keeping his voice steady. "That is rare," she said. "Many speak because they fear silence. They fear being unseen. But you wait. Why is that?" He thought for a moment before replying. "Words can be lost. Listening keeps them safe." Silara's lips curved in a faint smile. "You remind me of the elders of my people. They say silence is not emptiness, it is a vessel. You fill it with meaning only when needed." They walked on, and though they spoke no more, something changed. Their steps matched, their pace slow and even, as if an unspoken rhythm bound them. Ryan felt both at ease and unsettled. He wondered if she truly saw him, or if she spoke kindly to all. Yet deep inside, he sensed that her words were meant only for him. The following days strengthened this quiet bond. During a study of Aravan art, Silara showed the envoy the Hall of Echoes. This hall was vast, with walls covered in carvings that told the story of her people's past. Wars fought, peace won, journeys made across stars, all written in stone. The humans asked about trade routes, about what knowledge could be shared. Ryan, however, asked nothing. He simply traced the carvings with his eyes, trying to follow the story as if it were alive. When Silara noticed, she walked beside him. "Do you see the line that runs through it?" she asked. Ryan looked closely and saw a thin pattern carved into every scene. It was not the main image, but a thread that joined them all. "Yes," he said quietly. "It is the line of unity," Silara explained. "We believe no story stands alone. Each life connects to the next. That is why our art never breaks the line. It shows we are bound together, no matter what." Ryan nodded slowly. "It is beautiful." Her gaze lingered on him for a moment, as though testing the weight of his words. "You see more than most. That too is rare." The others did not notice these exchanges. To them, Ryan was still quiet, still on the edge of the envoy. But between him and Silara, a silent thread grew stronger each day. He did not seek her out openly, yet she always seemed to find him with a glance or a word meant for him alone. One evening, after a long day of council talks, the envoy was invited to a small gathering in the palace courtyard. The air was soft with night, and the stars of Aravan stretched bright above. Musicians played gentle instruments that shimmered like crystal when touched. The humans sat in awe of the setting. Ryan drifted to the edge of the courtyard, away from the chatter. He lifted his head, looking at the stars. They seemed closer here, more alive. While he stood alone, Silara approached quietly. "You watch the sky," she said. He turned and bowed his head slightly. "It feels endless. But also close, as if it could touch me." Silara followed his gaze. "The sky is a mirror. When you look long enough, you see not only the stars, but yourself." For a long moment, they stood side by side in silence. The music, the voices, the world around them faded. Only the stars and their quiet presence remained. Ryan felt his heart stir with something he did not name. It was too soon, too impossible, and yet too true to deny. She was a princess of a world unknown to his people, and he was only a visitor, a man of no rank. Still, the bond between them grew with every word, every silence. That night, when Ryan returned to his quarters, he lay awake again. His mind replayed the small moments: her voice in the gardens, her smile in the hall, her presence beneath the stars. He knew he should not think too deeply. He knew his place. But the heart is not bound by reason. In his heart, the bond was already real. And though he did not know it, in her heart, it was the same. Night on Aravan carried a beauty that words could not capture. The twin suns would sink below the horizon, leaving behind skies painted with violet and silver. Stars came alive like jewels scattered across endless dark. The gardens of the palace glowed faintly, not with fire or torch, but with living plants that shone with soft light. It was during such a night that Ryan found himself walking alone. The envoy had retired after a long day of discussion with the council. Most were tired, their voices worn from debate. Ryan, however, felt restless. His heart pulled him outside, away from stone walls and human company. He followed a path through the gardens, his steps light, his mind wandering. The air was cool, filled with the sound of water flowing from hidden streams. Strange flowers opened only at night, releasing fragrances that drifted like music. Ryan moved without purpose until he reached a small hill. From there, the palace rose behind him, and the city lights stretched far below. Above, the sky seemed endless, the stars close enough to touch. He stood still, breathing deeply, feeling both small and alive. His thoughts drifted to Solara. He had seen her many times in recent days, heard her voice, walked beside her in silence. Yet every meeting left him wanting more, not from greed but from wonder. She was unlike anyone he had ever known. Her strength was balanced with kindness, her words carried weight yet also gentleness. Ryan whispered to himself, almost without knowing. I wish I could wed her. The words left his lips like a secret, meant for no ears but his own. He thought them safe, carried away by the night air. His chest felt lighter after saying them, as if speaking the truth gave him peace, even if it could never be real. He was a simple envoy, she was the princess of a world, and no path joined them. But he was not alone. From the shadows of the garden, Solara stepped forward. She had been walking the same path, seeking quiet after the demands of the council. Her steps had brought her near, and she had paused when she saw him standing under the stars. She had meant to watch silently, to turn away and leave him to his thoughts. But then she heard his whisper. Her hearing, sharper than his, caught the words clearly. Instead of anger or offense, her lips curved into a smile. She stepped into the light of the glowing plants, her figure graceful, her eyes shining with curiosity. Ryan turned sharply when he heard the soft sound of her approach. His heart froze when he saw her. He felt heat rush to his face, fear twisting inside him. Had she heard? Did she know? Solara looked at him, her gaze steady. You speak wishes to the night. Ryan opened his mouth but no sound came. He bowed his head quickly, his voice shaking. Forgive me. I did not mean. She raised a hand, silencing him with gentle command. Do not hide your heart. I heard your words. Ryan felt his breath catch. Shame and fear tangled inside him. He wanted to explain, to beg pardon, but the weight of her presence held him still. He waited for rebuke, for dismissal, for the cold wall of royalty. Instead, Solara's voice was soft, almost tender. You said you wished to wed me. Ryan closed his eyes. Yes, but it was only a whisper, only a dream. I know my place. I am nothing compared to you. She stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. You are not nothing. You are honest. And honesty is rare. He lifted his head, stunned by her words. Her face carried no anger, no mockery. Only a calm strength, and something else he could not name. Then you shall, she said. Her voice was quiet but sure, each word like a stone placed with care. Ryan stared, unable to believe what he heard. I do not understand. Silara's smile deepened, though her eyes stayed serious. On Aravan, we do not bind ourselves only by rank. We bind ourselves by truth of heart. Your wish is pure, and I have seen your spirit. You listen when others only speak. You see when others only glance. That is worth more than titles. Ryan felt his chest tighten. His hands trembled slightly at his sides. But the council, your people, they would never allow it. Silara tilted her head. The council will test. The people will judge. But it is I who choose. And I have chosen. Her words rang like a bell inside him. Chosen. Could it be real? Could she truly mean it? He wanted to believe, yet doubt clawed at him. He was human, an outsider, a guest in her world. Why me? He asked, his voice almost a whisper again. Silara's gaze softened. Because when you look at me, I do not see fear, or hunger for power, or pride. I see respect. I see wonder. And in that wonder, there is truth. It is a rare gift, Ryan. And it calls to me. Silence fell between them. Only the sound of the night wind moved through the garden. Ryan felt as if the world had shifted, as if the stars themselves leaned closer to listen. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady though his heart raced. If there is a path, I will walk it. No matter how hard. No matter how far. Silara nodded slowly. Then we will see where it leads. She turned slightly, her hair catching the glow of the plants, her figure tall and radiant against the night. Come. Tomorrow I will speak with the council. You will learn what is required. If your heart is true, you will stand the trials. Ryan followed her steps, still in shock, still in awe. His whisper, meant only for the night, had been heard by the very one it named. And instead of scorn, she had given him a chance. As they walked back toward the palace, Ryan's heart burned with a fire he had never known. He was afraid, yes, but more than that he was alive. Whatever trials lay ahead, whatever doubts the council would throw, he would face them. For in her smile, in her words, he had found something worth more than fear. And so the night ended not with silence, but with a promise that would change the fate of two worlds. The morning after the whispered wish, Ryan woke with his heart still pounding from the memory of Silara's words. Then you shall. Those three words circled in his mind like a song he could not escape. They filled him with both joy and fear. He had never dreamed the princess would answer him so, and yet she had. Now, as the suns rose over the palace towers, he knew the weight of her promise would soon fall upon him. Silara kept her word. She gathered the council in the great hall, her voice strong as she declared her intent. Ryan of Earth has spoken truth to me, she said. He has offered his heart without deceit. I have chosen to honor that truth. I wish him to stand as my equal. The hall filled with murmurs. The council members, robed in white and silver, exchanged uneasy glances. The idea of a human joining their royal line was unthinkable to many. They had guarded their traditions for centuries, keeping their people separate from outsiders. To allow a man from another world into their crown was to open doors they had long kept closed. At last, the eldest counselor, Marin, rose to speak. His voice was calm but heavy with doubt. Princess, your will is respected, but tradition cannot be broken so easily. No outsider has ever entered our bloodline. No outsider has ever worn our symbols. If you wish this union, he must prove he is worthy. He must walk the trials. Solara nodded, as though she had expected these words. Then let the trials be given. If he passes, none may deny him. All eyes turned to Ryan. He stood at the side of the hall, his heart racing. He had not spoken, had not asked for this moment, yet here it was. Solara's gaze found him, steady and sure. Her eyes told him he was not alone. I will face the trials, Ryan said. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the hall. The council accepted. The decision was sealed. Ryan was to prove himself before the people of Aravan. If he failed, not only would he lose Solara, but the fragile trust between humans and Aravan might break as well. That evening, Solara met him in the gardens where their bond had first grown. The air was warm with the scent of flowers, the streams whispering nearby. She looked at him with calm eyes. You spoke with courage today, she said. I was afraid, Ryan admitted. But I could not step back. Not after your words. Solara's gaze softened. The trials will not be easy. They were shaped long ago to test leaders of our people. They measure more than strength. They measure spirit. They will push you to the edge of your being. Ryan nodded. I will face them. No matter what they demand. She reached out, brushing her fingers lightly across his hand. The touch was brief but full of meaning. Then walk with truth. That is all I ask. The first trial was announced the next day. The people gathered in the circle of stone, an arena carved into the earth. Crowds filled the seats, their voices low with curiosity. Few had ever witnessed these trials, for they were ancient traditions, rarely called upon in the modern age. The trial of strength came first. Ryan was to face the stone beast, a creature bred by the Aravan as a guardian of their sacred places. Its body was heavy with muscle, its skin tough as rock. The task was not to kill, but to stand against it, to prove endurance. When the gates opened, the beast stepped forward with thunder in its stride. The crowd gasped. Ryan's heart pounded, but he remembered Solara's words, walk with truth. He held no weapon save a staff of wood. The beast charged, its roar shaking the air. Ryan did not meet force with force. Instead, he moved with speed, rolling aside, striking lightly to guide the beast's path. Again and again it charged, and again he slipped away. His body ached, his breath grew short, but his mind stayed sharp. He did not fight to conquer, but to endure. After long minutes, the beast grew tired. It lowered its head and stepped back, as though recognizing his resolve. The council declared the trial complete. The crowd roared with approval. Solara's eyes shone with pride. The second trial came 2 days later. This was the trial of knowledge. Ryan was brought to the Hall of Stars, where ancient charts and riddles were kept. The test was to solve the path of a hidden star, a symbol of wisdom in their history. Counselors placed scrolls before him, filled with symbols and patterns unknown to most humans. Ryan's training helped him, but not fully. He struggled at first, his mind tangled in strange marks. Yet he remembered something Solara had told him in the gardens: every story is bound by a line of unity. Looking closer, he saw the hidden thread across the symbols. Slowly, piece by piece, he uncovered the answer. The hidden star was not far, not strange. It was the same star that rose above their city each spring, a reminder that wisdom is not in distant places but close at hand. When he spoke the answer, the hall fell silent, Then the council nodded. The trial was passed. But not all were pleased. Some council members whispered that his success was chance, that his survival in the arena had been luck. A shadow of doubt lingered, and behind that shadow, jealousy stirred. Not all wished to see him succeed. The third and final trial was yet to come. It would be the trial of compassion, the most difficult of all, for it tested not body or mind, but heart. Few knew what form it would take, for each person faced it differently. It was said the trial revealed itself to the one who stood before it. On the eve of the final trial, Ryan stood once more in the gardens with Solara. The night was quiet, the stars burning high. "Tomorrow," he said, his voice heavy, "I will face the last test." Solara looked at him, her expression steady. "It will not be the council who judges you. It will be your own heart. Trust it." Ryan breathed deeply, the weight of destiny pressing on him. "If I fall, I fear I will bring shame to you." She stepped closer, her voice low but firm. "If you walk with truth, there is no shame. Whatever happens, you have already shown me more than I hoped to see." Her words gave him strength. He lifted his head, looking into her eyes. "Then I will walk with truth. For you. For us." The bond between them deepened that night, silent yet strong, a bond that would face the coming storm together. The morning of the final trial arrived with a heavy silence across the city of Aravan. The people knew the first two trials had tested Ryan's body and his mind. Now came the hardest trial, the one that no one could prepare for. The trial of compassion was different for every challenger. It revealed itself in a way that reflected the soul of the one who faced it. The circle of stone was filled again. Thousands of Aravan citizens gathered to watch, their voices hushed. Some came out of curiosity, some out of doubt, and others out of hope. Solara sat at the front with the council, her eyes steady on Ryan as he stepped into the center. The eldest counselor, Murin, raised his staff. "This is the final trial," he declared. "It cannot be taught, it cannot be rehearsed. The trial will show itself, and the choice will reveal the heart of the one who stands before us." The ground shimmered with hidden light. From beneath the stone floor, an image began to form, not of beasts or riddles, but of people. A group of Aravan children appeared, standing at the edge of the circle. Their faces looked lost and afraid, as if caught in a storm only they could see. Beside them stood a figure, wounded and struggling, one of the Aravan guards who had once spoken against Ryan during the council meetings. The vision was not real in body, but it was real in meaning. The trial was clear, Ryan was being asked to choose. Save the guard who had opposed him, or save the children who cried out in fear. The crowd grew restless, watching closely. Some whispered that this was impossible. Others leaned forward, eager to see how the human would act. Ryan's chest tightened. His heart urged him toward the children, for their innocence was clear. Yet his eyes fell on the guard, whose face was twisted in pain. This man had tried to block him, had spoken against him in anger. To choose the children would be easy, but to save the one who stood as his enemy, that was harder. He stepped forward, his voice firm. "I will save them all." The crowd gasped. Some laughed in disbelief. Murin spoke again, his tone sharp. "You may only choose one. Such is the law of the trial." Ryan shook his head. "A law of choice may bind words, but not the heart. If my heart does not try to save all, then it is not true." He rushed forward. In the vision, the storm around the children grew stronger, winds tearing at their small bodies. At the same time, the guard fell to his knees, his life fading. Ryan dropped his staff and used his hands. He shielded the children first, pulling them close, speaking words of comfort. He lifted the smallest, carrying him in his arms. Then, with his other hand, he reached for the guard, holding him upright. His body strained, his breath came hard, but he did not let go. "Stay with me," he said. "All of you. I will not leave anyone behind." The storm raged louder, as if testing him, but he pressed on. He carried, he lifted, he pulled. His muscles ached, his knees shook, yet his heart burned with a strength greater than his body. At last, the storm began to fade. The vision slowly dissolved, the children vanishing into light, the guard's form melting away into calm air. The arena returned to silence. Ryan fell to one knee, breathless, sweat covering his face. But in his eyes there was no regret. He had chosen not to choose. He had chosen to save them all. The crowd erupted in cries and shouts. Some cheered, others argued. The council sat in shock. No challenger had ever spoken against the law of the trial. Yet none could deny what they had seen. Ryan had faced the hardest choice of all and answered with the courage of his heart. Murren rose slowly, his voice uncertain. "You have broken the law of the trial. Yet, you have also revealed its deepest meaning. Compassion is not bound by rules. It is bound by truth." The other counselors murmured, but Solara stood before they could speak further. She stepped down into the circle and approached Ryan, who was still on his knees. She reached out her hand and helped him rise. "Your heart has spoken," she said, her voice ringing across the arena. "You have passed the trial." The people roared, this time with true approval. Their voices filled the air like thunder, carrying not just surprise but respect. Even those who had doubted now looked at Ryan with new eyes. Yet in the shadows of the council seats, not all were pleased. Some faces were hard, their eyes sharp with hidden anger. They saw not a victory for tradition, but a threat to it. If a human could pass the trials, then perhaps their old ways were weaker than they believed. Quiet plans began to stir, unseen by the cheering crowd. That night, after the trial ended, Ryan sat in the gardens once more. His body still ached, but his heart felt light. Solara joined him, her presence like calm water after a storm. "You walked with truth," she said softly. "I only did what I felt," Ryan answered. "I could not leave them. Any of them." She looked at him with deep pride. "That is why you passed. Others may have chosen quickly, seeking the easier path. But you sought the harder one, because it was right. That is what makes you different." For a long moment, they sat together in silence, the stars bright above. Ryan felt her nearness, the bond between them stronger than ever. But deep in his heart, he knew this was not the end. The trials had tested him before the people, but not everyone would accept him so easily. Shadows were moving, waiting for their chance. And soon, he would face not trials of tradition, but trials of survival. For now, though, he let himself rest in the quiet, with Solara by his side. Whatever storms lay ahead, he was ready. The trials were complete. Ryan had faced the stone beast, solved the riddles of the Hall of Stars, and walked through the storm of compassion. The people of Aravan had cheered him, and many now spoke his name with respect. For the first time, it seemed possible that a human might truly stand beside their princess. But in the quiet corners of the council, unease grew. To some, Ryan's victory was not honor but threat. If a human could win the trials, then perhaps their ancient traditions were not as unshakable as they believed. Murin, the eldest counselor, hid his worry behind calm words, but others spoke in whispers of action. 3 nights after the final trial, a feast was held in the great hall. The tables were filled with fruits, shining grains, and crystal cups that caught the light of floating orbs. Music played, soft and steady, while the people celebrated. Solara sat at the head, her eyes bright with joy, her smile proud. Ryan sat near her, still humble, still quiet, but now no longer just an envoy. He was a man who had earned the respect of many. As the night passed, Solara raised her cup and spoke to the people. These trials have shown us that truth is not bound by race or world. It is bound by spirit. Ryan of Earth has walked the path with courage and compassion. Let this feast be not only for his victory, but for the unity of our worlds. The hall thundered with cheers. Yet in the shadows, 2 counselors exchanged glances. Their eyes were hard, their thoughts sharp. They had set a plan into motion, one that would turn the final trial into something darker. The next morning, the council declared that Ryan's trials were not fully complete. There remained, they said, one last proof, the path of loyalty. It was not a tradition known to all, but they spoke as if it were ancient law. Solara frowned when they announced it, for she knew the trials were always 3, never 4. Yet Murin lifted his hand, silencing doubt. Tradition is deep, he said. Sometimes even forgotten paths must rise again. If this man truly deserves his place, let him walk the path. The people, curious and stirred by the words of their leaders, accepted. Solara could not oppose the council openly. To fight them here would risk breaking the fragile peace she had built. But her eyes met Ryan's, filled with silent warning. That night, she went to him in the gardens. The stars glowed above, the streams whispered around them. This is not the true way, she said. They twist the law to test you further, or worse, to destroy you. Ryan listened, his face calm though his heart beat fast. If I refuse, they will say I fear the path. If I accept, they may seek to harm me. But if I walk away, I lose all. I will walk it. Solara touched his arm, her voice low. Then walk with care. And trust that not all of the council seeks your fall. The next day, the path of loyalty was set. Ryan was brought to the cliffs beyond the city, where a narrow bridge of stone crossed a deep canyon. On the other side waited a counselor who had spoken against him many times. Ryan's task was simple in words: carry the counselor across safely. The people gathered along the cliffs to watch. The canyon below was filled with mist, its depth unseen, its danger clear. The stone bridge was narrow, worn, and broken in places. Ryan understood at once. This was no fair trial. This was a trap. Still, he stepped forward. The counselor waiting on the far side looked at him with cold eyes, yet said nothing. Ryan walked across, steady and sure, until he reached him. Without a word, the counselor stepped onto Ryan's back, forcing him to bear his weight. The crowd gasped, but the council did not stop him. This was the test, to carry not a friend, but an enemy. Step by step, Ryan moved forward. The stone crumbled beneath him, the canyon winds howled. His arms shook, his legs burned, yet he pressed on. Halfway across, the counselor shifted, as if to throw him off balance. Ryan stumbled, nearly falling, but caught himself. From the cliffs, Solara's voice rang out. Hold strong, Ryan. The truth is in your heart. Her words gave him strength. He fixed his eyes on the far side and kept walking. But just as they neared the end, the counselor on his back made his move. With sudden force, he pushed against Ryan's shoulder, trying to cast him into the canyon. The crowd cried out in shock. Scylla rose to her feet, her eyes blazing. Ryan felt himself slip, but his hand caught the edge of the bridge. With a final surge of will, he pulled himself forward, dragging the counselor with him. They both collapsed onto solid ground, safe but shaken. The people roared, not in doubt, but in fury. They had seen the treachery with their own eyes. The trap was clear. Murmurs turned to shouts, shouts turned to cries for justice. Scylla stood tall, her voice like steel. This man has endured every trial, even those twisted by deceit. He has shown strength, wisdom, compassion, and loyalty. No more will I hear doubt. He is worthy. The crowd thundered in agreement. Even Marin could not silence them now. The plot against Ryan had failed, and in its failure, it had given him even greater honor. That night, the city lit its towers with bright fires, a sign of celebration. Yet Ryan sat quietly in the gardens once more, his body weary but his spirit unbroken. Scylla joined him, her eyes filled with both pride and worry. You stood against them all, she said. Ryan shook his head. I only held on. It was you, your voice, that gave me strength. She smiled softly. Together, then. That is how we will face what comes. In that moment, the bond between them deepened beyond whispers and trials. It became unshakable, a truth no counsel could deny. But in the shadows of Aravan, not all threats had ended. The turning point had come, yet the path ahead was still filled with danger. The great halls of the alien capital shone with light brighter than the stars above. Long banners of silver and blue hung from towering pillars carved from crystal stone. Hundreds of humans and aliens stood together in a vast circle, waiting for the moment history would change. The whispers of many voices filled the air, yet every eye turned when the doors of the hall opened. David walked forward, his steps steady though his heart beat like a drum. His clothes were simple yet noble, woven from fine cloth gifted by the emperor himself. He felt the weight of every gaze upon him. Many of the nobles had once spoken against him. Many still doubted a human could stand beside their princess. But tonight, doubt would not rule. Across the hall stood Princess Alira. Her gown shimmered like liquid light, flowing down her tall form with beauty that no words could hold. A crown of slender silver rested on her head, glowing softly against her dark hair. Her eyes met David's, and for a moment the vast hall disappeared. All he could see was her gentle smile. The emperor rose from his seat on the high dais. His presence commanded silence. His voice carried across the hall with strength. Tonight we gather not for politics, not for war, not for pride, the emperor declared. Tonight we gather for unity. My daughter has chosen to walk a path none before her have dared. She has chosen to join her life with one not of our kind, but of humanity. And in doing so, she binds our peoples together. Some nobles lowered their heads in disapproval, yet none spoke against the emperor's words. They had seen David's courage when he shielded the princess. They had seen Alira's strength when she declared her heart before them all. Even if they still doubted, they could not deny the truth of what had happened. David walked slowly until he stood beside Alira. She reached out her hand, and he took it, feeling warmth flow through his fingers. For him, this was more than a ceremony. It was a promise that no barrier, no distance, no fear, could stand between them. The high priest of the empire stepped forward. His robes were long and heavy, covered in patterns of stars. He carried a golden staff topped with a crystal flame. His voice rang clear. Before us stand two souls. Different in body, yet joined in spirit. Different in world, yet united in purpose. Do you, David of Earth, swear to walk beside Princess Alira in hardship and in triumph, in shadow and in light? David's voice was steady. I swear it. The priest turned to Alira. And do you, Princess Alira of the Empire, swear to walk beside David of Earth, in hardship and in triumph, in shadow and in light? Alira's eyes shone with quiet fire. I swear it. The priest raised his staff, and the crystal flame flared bright. Then let it be written in the stars, let it be sung in the halls, that this union is bound. Two become one, and through them, two peoples are joined. A great cheer rose from the humans in the crowd. The aliens followed, some hesitant, some with true joy. For the first time in memory, the hall rang with voices of both races together. David and Alira turned to each other. She placed her hands upon his shoulders, and he placed his upon hers. Their foreheads touched, the ancient gesture of her people's vows. The moment seemed endless. He whispered, not in despair as before, but in happiness, I wished I could wed you. Alira smiled, her voice soft yet certain. And now you have. The hall erupted once more in sound, yet for David and Alira, it was only silence and peace. They knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges. There would be doubts. But together they could face all of it. As the celebration began, human and alien shared food, music, and laughter. Strange instruments filled the air with deep tones, while human singers added bright harmony. Children of both races played together in the corners of the hall, chasing each other under the watchful eyes of proud parents. What had once seemed impossible was now living truth. The emperor approached David, his tall frame casting a long shadow. For a moment David feared the ruler might still disapprove. But the emperor placed a heavy hand on his shoulder and spoke with firm respect. You have shown bravery not only in battle, but in heart. My daughter has chosen well. Guard her, as you have already done, and know that you are now of this empire as much as of your own world. David bowed his head. I will protect her, with all I am. Alira stood beside him, her hand still resting in his. She spoke proudly. And I will stand with him, no matter the storms we must face. Later that night, when the hall had grown quieter and the music softer, David and Alira stepped onto the high balcony that overlooked the city. Towers of crystal shone with soft light below, and far above the stars stretched endless across the dark sky. David breathed deeply, feeling the cool night wind. Do you think they will truly accept us? He asked. Alira leaned against him, her gaze steady on the stars. Some already have. Others will need time. But hearts change when they see truth. And our truth is stronger than fear. He held her close, his chest rising with quiet pride. For all his doubts, for all the struggles behind them, here he stood, beside the princess who had become his partner. He no longer felt like a visitor from Earth. He felt like someone who belonged. As dawn began to break on the horizon, painting the sky in silver and gold, the two stood together and watched. It was not only the dawn of a new day, but the dawn of a new age. Humanity had found a place in the stars, not through conquest or power, but through love and courage. And at the center of it all stood a man who had once whispered a wish, and a princess who had answered with hope. The galaxy stretched vast and uncertain before them. But with Alira's hand in his, David was ready to face it all. This was the beginning of their story, and of a future where two worlds would walk as one.